السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We were talking last time about some of the rulings or أحكام الإمامة. Correct me if I'm wrong. أحكام الإمامة. Some of the rulings with regards to الإمامة. As we know that Salat al-Jama'ah, it's involves or includes the Imam and the Ma'mum. And therefore there are rulings that pertains to al-Imam and there are rulings with regards to the Ma'mum. The Imamah is such a great position, is not to be asked, but it's to be given to the one that fits. The Prophet ﷺ himself was the Imam of the people. So that's a position that a person is responsible. And it's, as a result of that, it's a great virtue, but for those who would fit such a position. We talked about those who have the priority to lead, but again, it's to be given to the ones that in a particular order, those who have more knowledge of the Book of Allah. And if they are the same, then those who knows best of the Sunnah. If they're in the Sunnah, they're equal, then hijrah, those who made hijrah before others. And if they are the same, then silman, there's the oldest among them after all of these things has been taken care of. So some of the rulings done in a particular order with regards to this is that al-Imam is to be followed. The majority al-Imamu yu'tamma bih. The majority al-Imamu yu'tamma bih. And since he is going to be followed, of course he has to be with certain qualities, the best of them, and with the Quran and so on. But what if someone does not fit that position, but he's a Muslim and he leads the people? If people have a choice, people in charge of a masjid and so on, they should not allow someone that openly commit a sin or upon bid'ah or something like this to lead the people. They have a responsibility to make sure that those who lead the Salah are people of Sunnah, they are not openly committing sins and things like this. But if there's a masjid where the one that leads is upon bid'ah or he openly commits sins, and of course these things are levels, or the ruler is leading and people might disagree with him, or he's an oppressor or whatever there is. What's the ruling of the Salah in this case? That means people are either forced to have someone to lead them, appointed by the leader, for example, or this is how the situation is in a masjid. If he's a Muslim, then it's permissible to pray behind him. And the belief of the people of al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, that they see the Salah behind anyone, whether it's righteous or wicked or evil. And it's never to approve the evil, but it shows this is a ruling that has to be observed. Because it also comes from the matter of forbidding the Ummah to revolt against the rulers, even if they're oppressing them. This is the order of the Prophet ﷺ. And the rulers, they used to lead their people in the Salah. So they would lead them in the Salah. So the people have to follow them in the Salah. And also if they enforce something, they have to follow them. Since the Imam and the Ma'mum, the Ma'mum follows the Imam, so it's not permissible for the Ma'mum to do something with or before the Imam. So to do something before the Imam, this is of course, if he does it intentionally, that invalidates the Salah. And also with the Imam, this is not permissible, to move with the Imam. And the same thing if a person lags behind the Imam for a long time, this is also not permissible. And if he lags behind the Imam and the Imam become ahead of him with two moves, the Salah of the Ma'mum becomes invalid. So if the Imam is standing in the Salah and he says Allahu Akbar and he goes for ruku', and the Ma'mum continue to stand. So this is one move. And then the Imam said Sami Allahu liman hamida and gets up from the ruku' and the Ma'mum was still standing. That makes the Salah of the Ma'mum immediately not valid. He has to join the Salah again. But of course, this is not permissible whatsoever. And the hadith warns against this and is very clear. So this is with regards to the movement with al-Imam and the Ma'mum. The intentions, of course, is important with regards to al-Imam wal-Ma'mum. I hope that you're writing down these notes, inshallah, just to remember these types of masail. Is that the Imam, if he's an Imam, his intention is that he's leading the people in the Salah. And that's not something to be said because the intention is in the heart. And the Ma'mum, he has the intention that he's not praying alone, he's praying as a Ma'mum, he follows the Imam. This is a very obvious thing, but it becomes important, or what's the significance of it? If someone joins someone else in the Salah, like some people who would miss, for example, the Salah, and they find someone making Salah, they must walk, he has some raka'at that he's making up or so, and the person comes late, so he would join him in the Salah, and that person was a Ma'mum, and the Imam made Salam, and the Ma'mum gets up to finish his Salah, and someone walks in and he joined with him in the Salah. The intention here is so important. The one that joined, it's very clear that he's joining to be a Ma'mum. But what if the one that's supposed to be the Imam, he does not have the intention of being Imam? He doesn't know the ruling. He does not believe that this is the right thing to do. Many people that might have this. So once the Ma'mum feels that the Imam is not being an Imam, and there are signs of this, he's not raising his voice in the recitation if it's a nighttime Salatul Maghrib or Isha or Fajr, but he might be making the third rak'ah, so he doesn't have to make the Salah, the recitation loud. So he would stand still while he's standing with him. He doesn't know yet if he's not been an Imam or not. But it will become very obvious when he goes to Ruku', for example. If he doesn't raise his voice in Takbir, acting like an Imam, then in that case, the Ma'mum should leave him with his intentions. Leave him. That means he stays in his place, but he starts praying as munfarid, as someone praying alone. So that person is not his Imam anymore. Because if you continue to follow him, that it validates the Salah of the Ma'mum in this case. So because of the issue of the intention, that the Imam has to have the intention of being an Imam. The Ma'mum or the Masbuk has certain situations, of course, is that if he comes late, when does a person get to attain Takbiratul Ihram is when he's behind the Imam standing, when the Imam is saying Allahu Akbar to start the Salah. And this Takbiratul Ihram by itself, to attain it or to be there when the Imam is saying Allahu Akbar, it's a virtuous thing. That's why the hadith encouraged him to come early to the Salah. And the sound hadith about من أدرك تكبيرة الإحرام 40 يوما. This is من أدرك تكبيرة الإحرام 40 يوما كتبت له براءتان. Two براءة has been written for him. That means two means of being freed from النار, to be freed from the hellfire, وبراءة من النفاق, and to be freed from النفاق, from hypocrisy. This is a sound hadith quoted by Tirmidhi and others. So that shows the virtue of it, and the virtue of coming early to the Salah. This is one of the sunnah that has been deserted by many of the people today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. But then if a person comes late, how to perform the Jama'ah, as we know that there are two opinions of this. Just the reason why we're saying two opinions, so that those who used to do it one way or the other, the Salah is valid. But the one opinion that is always being said is that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إذا سمعتم الإقامة فعليكم بالسكينة فما أدركتم فصلوا وما فاتكم فأتموا. If you hear the Iqamah, then be in state of tranquility. Do not run. فما أدركتم فصلوا. What you have reached of the Salah, praise. You join with the Imam in whatever position the Imam is in. وما فاتكم فأتموا. And what you missed, completed. So the ulama, when they talked about completed, that means when you enter the Salah, this is the first rak'ah for you. Regardless of what rak'ah is it, the Imam is in. So you consider that as your first rak'ah. So if you join the Salah in the third rak'ah, Salatul Isha, this is your first rak'ah. Your first rak'ah, that means you recite Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah if you have time. If you don't, then you make ruku' with the Imam. Then after the Imam, they make salam. You make salam, then you stand up and you pray the third and the fourth rak'ah, which will be silent in this case if someone join you in the salah that you're not supposed to raise your voice. So anytime a person joins the salah, if he's masbuk is the one that comes late. Then you consider the first rak'ah that he enters with the Imam as his first rak'ah. And the takbirat al-ihram is what makes a person join the salah. So he has to make takbirat al-ihram while standing. So if someone coming late for the salah and the rak'ah is attained by the ruku', if a person comes after the Imam gets up from the ruku', he missed that rak'ah. So when a person sees the Imam in ruku', for example, and he's rushing to make ruku' in the saf before the Imam gets up from the ruku', he might make a mistake and don't make takbirat al-ihram, which makes him did not even enter the salah. He has to go to the saf and stand there, and while standing, he raises his hand and he says, Allahu Akbar, takbirat al-ihram. Then he makes another takbir to go to ruku', which is takbirat al-intiqal. The first one, takbirat al-ihram, is rukn, is a pillar. You cannot enter the salah without takbirat al-ihram, and you have to be in position standing. The second takbirah, even if a person misses it, it's okay, the salah is valid, but he should have both takbirs. So the first one is takbirat al-ihram, then he raises his hands again to Allah Akbar to join in the ruku'. So that's also one of the things that some people, that if they find the Imam in sujood, for example, they don't join, they wait till the Imam gets up, which is not something that is recommended. They should join the Imam in whatever position the Imam is in. No one knows if this sajda might be the mean or the reason for the person to enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many masail, of course, but we've taken it in a brief way, as always, the first level of things. When people, for example, join the salah, and the Imam, the one that leads the salah, should be aware of those who are behind him. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the authentic hadith, "Man amma an-nasa falyukhaffif." Whoever leads the people in the salah, falyukhaffif, then he should make it light. فإن صلي مع those who pray with him الضعيف والسقيم والكبير وذو الحاجة, the one that is weak, the one that is sick, the old one, the one that has a need that is he has to take care of. And the takhfif is a relative thing. So the takhfif is according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ. So Fajr Salah is the longest of all the salawat. The Prophet ﷺ used to recite with 60 verses or so. He used to recite in Surah Al-Isha with awasat al-mufassal, like Surah Amma Yasta'alun, Surah Al-Mutaffifin al-Layl, and so on. Surah Al-Maghrib used to recite with qisar al-mufassal, short surahs. And Dhuhr al-Asr, like Salat al-Dhuhr, the like of Surah, even sometimes the Sajda, you would make long the first rak'ah, or Surah al-Qari'ah, or the like of this. And of course, to make every move in the Salah to give it its rights, and to make the tasbih and so on. And of course, also that is depending on the people also behind them. And those who would take the opinion that the Imam can make his Salah as long as he can, is because of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, that I would enter the Salah and I would love to make it long. Then I hear the cry of a child. So he would make the Salah light, والسلام, because of what he knows of the mother and her heart towards her child. So some said that since the Prophet ﷺ, he said that he would like to make it long, that means if people are upon this and it's known that they would make the salah long, why not? Especially if there is no big congregation or women, old people that are in need, things of that nature. But of course, with the agreement of everyone. And of course, the salah, which is the best subject ever, and one of the things that needs to really be stressed, the masajid should go back the way it should be. Especially in the West, especially in America, there are so much of socialization that is in the masajid, it takes away from the ibadah and the focus of the main subject of the masjid. The masajid, mashallah, many of them are big and institutions and schools, and which was all needed, of course, to the communities. But sometimes it takes away from the job of the masjid. And people become in the masjid for other reasons other than the ibadah and the salah. And when people come to the masjid, their concern should be how to worship Allah. They want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dhikr. The Prophet ﷺ said that masajid for dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to read Quran and to make salah. This is the main job of the masjid. في بيوت الأذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه قلوبهم والأبصار. In houses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted for it to be erect, which is the masajid. يسبح له فيها, they're praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it بالغدو والآصال, in the morning and in the evening. رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله. Men, it does not divert them away from the dhikr of Allah, the lahu, entertainment, amusement, and at-tijara, trade. Nothing take them away from the dhikr of Allah. And iqam as-salah, establishing the salah and giving the zakah. يَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا. This is the characteristics of the people of the masajid. They fear a day, تَتَقَلَّبُ فِي الْقُلُوبِ وَالْأَبْصَارِ, the hearts and the eyes will change. So that means the horrors of the day of judgment. And this is to the end of the verses. So this is how the masajid should be. That's why when we talk about these rulings and matters of fiqh, is to bring the humbleness and the khushu' in the salah. And when we say the ma'mum follows the imam, this is with the khushu' in the heart. And fiqh matters is essential for a person to attain the khushu' and the presence of the heart in the salah. One of the things also that when we said if the imam is praying alone with someone, two people only, then the ma'mum stands right next to the imam on his right side. And the woman stands in the line. If she's imam to the rest of the women, then she stands in the middle of the line with them. She does not go forward. And the imam, if there's more than one, then he goes forward and the people are behind him. And it's not permissible for someone to pray in front of the imam. And the women are to be prayed in the back. And the best lines of the women are the last lines, and the worst of the lines of the women are the ones that are closer to the men, and opposite for men, to have that separation between men and women. And if that's the case in the salah, then you can imagine how it should be other than the salah. People are in devotion and ibadah to Allah, in order to be completely away from one another, the men and women. So that means outside the salah, this is even more. The issue of, and because of the time, just one last point here, taswiyat al-sufuf, making the lines straight and filling the gaps. This is part of the salah. The Prophet ﷺ, he would say when he's lining up the rows on the salah, he would say, سَوْوا صُفُوفَكُمْ فَإِنَّ تَسْوِيَةَ الصُّفُوفِ مِنْ إِقَامَةِ الصَّلَاةِ, which means make your rows, your lines straight, because indeed making it straight, making it even and straight and so on, is part of the establishment of the salah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, establish the salah, what does it mean? It means to pray and to make proper wudu and so on, and to make the line straight, and to all of the different acts of the salah. So making the line straight is part of the salah. And the Prophet ﷺ would say, أَقِيمُوا الصُّفُوفِ, أَقِيمُوا الصُّفُوفِ, make the saf, establish the saf, like a brick wall. وَحَادُوا بَيْنَ الْمَنَاكِبِ, and make the manakib, the shoulders, right, even with one another. وَسُدُّوا الْخَلَلِ, and fill al-khalal, fill the gaps in between. وَلِينُوا بِأَيْدِي إِخْوَانِكُمْ, and be soft with your brother's hands. Do not make it difficult and tight for them. وَلَا تَذَرُوا فُرُوجَاتٍ لِلشَّيْطَانِ, and do not leave gaps for the shaitan. وَمَنْ وَصَلَ صَفًّا وَصَلَهُ اللَّهُ, and whoever connect a saf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will connect him. وَمَنْ قَطَعَ صَفًّا قَطَعَهُ اللَّهُ, and whoever disconnect a saf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will sever him. And the Prophet would say, istawu 3 times. And this is, part of the salah, as we heard, and the reward of it is as mentioned. And that's why people should not take this matter lightly. But with the situation that people are facing nowadays, of course, this is the fatwa of the ulama that we have to follow because of the exceptional situations. But we have to be careful with what's in our hearts, that a person should not like the situation, like to have space and put his carpet on and nobody's touching him. This is something that a person has to dislike. It's just an exceptional situation, and soon, inshallah ta'ala, things will go back to normal. So that's the norm. Otherwise, the salah, if it's done like this is something that is very disliked. And this is one of the jobs of the imam, to make sure that the saf, that the rules are aligned. We'll stop here, inshallah, because of the next class. Wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa baraka Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.